Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So contrary to my usual videos where I just talk about makeup and I do tutorials and I do reviews and all that sort of thing, today we're going to be going into the past. And for me personally, I've always had this fascination with cosmetics and how they reflect society's standards, opinions, beliefs, spirituality, customs, and I feel like makeup is so powerful in that way because if you look at makeup from a specific time, you can get an idea of how these people lived, what were their beliefs, what were their opinions. It's just so fascinating to me. I wanted to talk about makeup in the ancient world, and I was going to make this very broad, and then I was like, wait, no, hold on, I need to make it more specific because there's just so much to get into, and that's why today's video is going to be talking specifically about ancient Egyptian cosmetology. Basically, makeup, hair, what they did to their skin, and how it reflected their beliefs, their cultures, their way of life. So if you're interested, I hope you enjoyed this video, and even if you don't think that this will be interesting for you, you might discover that you find this slightly interesting. So keep watching and let's get into it. Now, ancient Egyptians were way ahead of their time in so many aspects of life. For example, when it came to women's rights, ancient Egyptian women could inherit money, inherit and own land, operate businesses, and divorce their husbands. When you compare that to later time periods where women were completely owned by their husbands and could not divorce them, could not own property independently, it is such a big difference. You can seriously see how ahead the ancient Egyptians were when it came to women's rights. Another thing was hygiene.
Ancient Egyptians were very conscious of hygiene. In special rooms, men and women entrusted their bodies into the hands of their servants, who rubbed them with aromatic oils and ointments to soften the skin.
It was typical for everyone to bathe at least once a day, and if you were a priest, you bathed multiple times a day. That's because cleanliness and the overall presentation of self was very important to ancient Egyptians, not just because they wanted to look nice, but also because of their religion and their spirituality. Now, a way to truly understand how important this was to the ancient Egyptians is to look into the Book of the Dead. And if you don't know what that is, it was basically the equivalent of the Bible for the ancient Egyptians. They had spells, they had incantations, and it was all designed to provide an easy access and an easy journey into the afterlife. So you needed the Book of the Dead to survive the journey into the afterlife. So in the Book of the Dead, it is stipulated that one cannot recite the spells or incantations in the afterlife unless they're clean and presentable. And it is completely plain that they mean that not just in the spiritual sense, but also in the physical sense. If you look at spell number 125, it prohibits one from speaking it unless one is clean, dressed in fresh clothes, shod in white sandals, painted with eye paint, anointed with the finest oil of myrrh. So that just tells you how important makeup and overall presentation was to the ancient Egyptians. They needed it to be able to have eternal life. Now, makeup was used throughout the entirety of ancient Egypt, pretty much from the pre-dynastic period to the Roman period. Of course, it did alter a little bit throughout those thousands of years, and in the earlier years of ancient Egypt, makeup was usually manufactured by the temples. However, in the later years, the temples gradually realized how large a cash revenue could be derived from the production of cosmetics. So that's when cosmetics in ancient Egypt became a little bit more mainstream. You could buy your makeup or you could make it at home for yourself for a cheaper price. The typical morning routine would consist of bathing, applying a certain cream to the face which was meant to shield oneself against the sun, and then one would apply makeup, and it was often derived from ochre and sometimes mixed with sandalwood, and this would be applied to the face. Makeup, specifically eye makeup, holds a greater significance, especially when you hear about the myth of Horus, the falcon god. If you read ancient Egyptian mythology, it is very interesting. I'm not going to get into it too much because then we would be here for forever, but in the myth, Horus has a fight with his uncle Sif. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing that right. But Horus, who was actually the son of Osiris, the ruler of the gods, he loses an eye. And this is really, really crucial because his eyes represented the sun and the moon. So losing an eye was, of course, bad for him, but it also disrupted the equilibrium of the universe. So that is why, in order to regain this equilibrium and in order to save the universe, he applied makeup to give himself the appearance of having two eyes instead of one. So after that, the sun and the moon, they regained their places in the universe, everything was fine, and that is one of the reasons why the priests especially paid such attention to the manufacturing and the wearing of makeup, specifically kohl eyeliner. Kohl was created by grinding the natural elements of galena, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, malachite and other ingredients into a powder, and then mixing them with oil or fat until a cream was produced. And since makeup itself was considered very perishable, they needed to store it in safe containers, so they usually had containers made out of stone or, in other cases, wood, ivory, silver, or other precious metals if you were very wealthy.
As they filled these jars with aromatic substances, the ancient Egyptians had more than beauty in mind. In a hot, dry country like Egypt, care for the body was of particular importance. To treat trachoma, conjunctivitis, and other eye diseases caused by the foul-smelling emanations from the Nile marshes, the ancient chemists improved the composition of their kohl.
So for ancient Egyptians, the ideal eye shape was the almond eye. And I found a quote from Egyptologist Helen Strudwick, and she writes, "In ancient Egypt, the focus was on the eyes, which were outlined with green or black eye paint to emphasize their size and shape. The ground pigments of green malachite, mixed with water to form as paste, were used until the middle of the Old Kingdom, but were then replaced by black kohl, produced from the mineral galena, which came from the mountain regions of Sinai. Significantly, kohl had the therapeutic value in protecting the eyes from infections caused by sunlight, dust, or flies." Sticks for applying kohl eyeliner were made from reed, or if you were more wealthy, porcelain, and a lot of wealthy ancient Egyptians decided to actually engrave their name in hieroglyphics on their kohl sticks. I just sat down to edit, and I actually completely forgot to mention a key aspect in the video that I wanted to mention, but I of course did not, and that is that makeup in ancient Egypt was worn by both men and women. Both sexes wore makeup. It was considered normal for men and women to wear makeup. And personally, I feel like that was also one of the reasons why makeup was used a lot more openly than in other societies. In other societies, even in the ancient world at the same time, makeup was not used as openly. It was considered a little bit more secretive. And if you wore makeup, it was considered a flaw on your character. However, in ancient Egypt, they had none of that. Makeup was considered an important part of daily and spiritual life. And that's why both men and women wore makeup. So when it came to smelling nice, of course, that was very important. Ancient Egyptians bathed quite often, like I said, at least once a day, and they actually had an ancient form of deodorant and used perfume.
القديمة كان له مستويات متعددة. في المعبد بيقدم على أساس إنه جزء من الخدمة اللي بتقدم للإله. الرائحة نفسها كانت إشارة إلى وجود الإله الخفي، ومن هنا كانت أهمية العطر النادر اللي نظمت ليه رحلات إلى بلاد بونت التي لا يعرف موقعها حتى الآن. كان العطر مقدس في المعبد، لكن كان أيضا جزء من ثقافة الناس اليومية.
The desired smell was spicy and sweet, and a lot of times scents and perfumes would be imported from different regions and countries. If you were a wealthy person, you could afford to get those scents. However, if you were poor or if you didn't have as much money to spend, you could derive scents from natural ingredients found in ancient Egypt, such as plants and herbs, and that's what a lot of people used to wear. Something else that I have found to be quite fascinating is how they wore their hair. And actually, ancient Egyptians, they hated hair. They did not like hair at all. Hair was considered undesirable. So ancient Egyptians in general had no hair on their heads. It was completely gone. I believe that this was probably because they wanted to keep lice away, and also because just in general it would have been a lot more comfortable to have no hair on your head if you are in the desert. Ancient Egyptians wore wigs, and if you were wealthy, you had your wigs very finely made. You had many of them. You could have them inlaid with precious stones or materials, or just made in a certain way that was just fine quality. You could have them perfumed. However, if you were from the poorer class, you would most likely have your wigs made from papyrus or have a simple head covering. I could honestly go on and on forever about makeup in ancient Egypt, but I feel like I have to stop because this might be going on for too long. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Honestly, just scratching the surface practice of makeup in ancient Egypt. So if you want to learn more, if you want to see my resources, I will link them down in the description box where you can check them out yourself. I have a few videos, I have a few articles, and you can just read that and you can just do your research to your heart's content. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I would like to do more videos like this, actually, like talking about like period makeup and just being more in depth with that kind of topic in general. So I might be doing that in future videos. So if you do want to see that, then of course subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.